Iran stands at a crossroads, gripped by economic collapse, public outrage, and mounting international pressure. The air in Tehran is thick with uncertainty, as families struggle to make ends meet and businesses shutter their doors. Once bustling markets now stand eerily quiet, a stark reminder of the hardship that has seeped into daily life. The sense of unease is palpable, with every conversation tinged by anxiety about the future. The streets echo with protest, and the regime faces a legitimacy crisis unlike any before. Demonstrators from all walks of life, students, workers, mothers, and elders, have united in a rare show of solidarity. Their chants reverberate through the city, demanding justice and accountability. The flames of discontent burn brighter with each passing day, as more Iranians join the movement, refusing to be silenced. This is not just another episode in Iran's history, it's a potential turning point, with the very foundations of the Islamic Republic under threat. The echoes of past uprisings linger, but today's unrest feels different, more urgent, more determined. Generations who once watched from the sidelines are now stepping forward, inspired by the courage of those before them and fueled by a hope for real change. Years of unrest have led to this moment, but today's demonstrations are larger, more radical, and more widespread than ever. From the capital to remote towns, the call for reform has become a nationwide chorus. Social media amplifies their voices, connecting Iranians across regions and generations, and making it impossible for authorities to ignore the scale of dissent. What began as economic grievances has become a call for the system's downfall. The frustration over rising prices and joblessness has evolved into a broader demand for political freedom and human rights. For many, this is no longer just about survival, it's about reclaiming dignity and shaping a future where opportunity is not reserved for a select few. The government, led by an aging supreme leader, is isolated after losing regional influence and now faces unprecedented internal dissent. Once a powerful player in the Middle East, Iran now finds itself increasingly alone, its alliances strained and its authority questioned both at home and abroad. The leadership's attempts to project strength only highlight its vulnerability. Violent crackdowns and information blackouts have failed to break the spirit of defiance. Instead, each act of repression seems to strengthen the resolve of the protesters. Armed with smartphones and social media, they document every moment, ensuring the world bears witness to their struggle. The regime's efforts to control the narrative are met with creative resistance as citizens find new ways to communicate and organize. Iranians are risking everything for dignity, freedom, and opportunity. Young people, women, and minorities are at the forefront, challenging decades of repression. Their courage is contagious, inspiring even those who once felt powerless to take a stand. In the face of danger, they hold up peace signs and demand a voice in their country's future. The choices made now, by leaders and protesters alike, will decide whether Iran descends into chaos or finds a path to change. The stakes could not be higher. Every negotiation, every confrontation, carries the weight of history. The world watches as a nation teeters between hope and despair, its destiny shaped by the courage and decisions of its people. The world is watching as the nation's fate hangs in the balance. International leaders issue statements and newsrooms across the globe follow every development. Iran's struggle has become a symbol of resistance and resilience, a reminder that the fight for freedom is universal, and that the outcome here will echo far beyond its borders. At the heart of Iran's turmoil is a catastrophic economic collapse. The rial's free fall, now at 1.4 million to the dollar, has wiped out savings and destroyed purchasing power. Inflation hovers near 40%, with food and essentials now out of reach for millions. The government's gasoline price hike was the final straw, sparking the current wave of protests. Businesses are shuttered, unemployment is rampant, and the once stable middle class has plunged into poverty. The crisis is no longer about policy, it's about daily survival, fueling anger that has spilled onto the streets. Iran's economy is broken, and hope is in short supply. For ordinary Iranians, the economic collapse is not just a headline, it's a daily reality that shapes every moment of their lives. The struggle to make ends meet has become relentless, and the sense of lost dignity is felt in every corner of society. Once thriving markets now stand eerily quiet, and the simple act of shopping for food has become a source of anxiety and frustration. Grocery shopping, once a mundane routine, is now a stressful ordeal. Even the most basic staples, bread, rice, cooking oil, have become unaffordable luxuries for many. Prices rise almost daily, and shelves that were once full are now often bare. People find themselves forced to make impossible choices, deciding between food, rent, and other essentials. Families gather around smaller meals, stretching what little they have. Parents quietly count dwindling savings, trying to shield their children from the harsh reality. Dreams of a better future are put on hold, and years of hard work seem to have vanished overnight. The sense of uncertainty is overwhelming. The crisis reaches far beyond the dinner table. In pharmacies, vital medicines are increasingly hard to find. Sanctions and the collapse of the currency have made even basic drugs scarce and prohibitively expensive. For those with chronic illnesses, every day is a gamble. Health emergencies, once manageable, now threaten to ruin families financially. Medical bills pile up, and many are forced to go without treatment. The inability of the system to provide basic security has deepened resentment and left people feeling abandoned by those in power. The psychological toll is immense. Stress, hopelessness, and a profound sense of betrayal have become part of daily life. People struggle with anxiety and depression, feeling trapped in a situation they cannot control. Conversations in homes, cafes, and on the streets are filled with anger and frustration. Many blame government incompetence and corruption for their suffering, and the sense of injustice is palpable. Yet, in the midst of hardship, a new sense of unity has emerged. Shared suffering has brought people together, stripping away fear and forging bonds of solidarity. Neighbors support each other, and communities find strength in collective action. Many now feel they have nothing left to lose. This desperation has fueled a resolve to confront the authorities, despite the risks. The courage to speak out and demand change is growing stronger every day. The result is a society on the edge, one that is ready to risk everything for the hope of a better future, no matter the cost. The uprising began with merchants in Tehran's Grand Bazaar, protesting impossible business conditions. Their strike quickly spread, igniting protests in over 170 locations across 25 provinces. The movement's scale is unprecedented, uniting Iranians across ethnic and regional lines. Economic grievances rapidly turned political. Chants for lower prices became calls for the regime's overthrow. Protesters tear down symbols of authority, demanding not reform, but revolution. The movement is spontaneous and leaderless, making it resilient and unpredictable. No central figure can be arrested to stop it. It's a genuine grassroots uprising. The regime faces a direct existential challenge from a people who have had enough. Iran's rulers have never faced a crisis of legitimacy this deep or widespread. The government's response to the protests has been nothing short of swift and ruthless, sending a chilling message to anyone daring to challenge its authority. In a matter of hours, the streets transformed into battlegrounds, echoing with the sounds of sirens, shouting, and the crack of gunfire. Security forces, riot police, Basij militia, and plainclothes agents flooded neighborhoods in overwhelming numbers. They deployed tear gas, swung batons, and, in many cases, fired live ammunition directly into crowds. The government's intent was clear: to crush dissent quickly and decisively, no matter the cost. To further tighten its grip, authorities imposed a nationwide internet blackout. This digital silence was designed to disrupt protest organization, cut off communication with the outside world, and hide the true scale of the crackdown from both citizens and international observers. The true death toll remains shrouded in secrecy. While official numbers are rarely released, credible reports from human rights groups suggest that thousands may have been killed, with many more wounded or arrested. The violence has left a deep scar on the nation's collective memory. Hospitals are overwhelmed, struggling to treat the influx of injured protesters. Meanwhile, families search desperately for missing loved ones, scouring hospitals and morgues for any sign of them. The sense of fear and uncertainty is palpable, as many remain unaccounted for. The supreme leader has publicly endorsed the crackdown, dismissing the protesters as foreign agents and traitors. Government officials echo this narrative, insisting that the unrest is the result of outside interference rather than genuine domestic grievances. Dialogue is off the table. The regime has made it clear that it will rely solely on force to maintain control. Any calls for negotiation or reform are met with silence or further repression. This strategy of brute force has worked for the regime in the past, quelling uprisings before they could gain momentum. But now, the scale and intensity of the protests risk fueling even greater rage and resistance among the population. The violence has only deepened the divide between rulers and ruled, creating an atmosphere of mistrust and polarization. Many Iranians now see their government as an occupying force, rather than a source of protection. Iran's leaders are betting everything on repression, gambling that fear will restore order. But with anger simmering just beneath the surface, the outcome of this brutal gamble is far from certain. Instead of quelling dissent, the crackdown has unified and enraged the public. Each death becomes a rallying cry, transforming grief into resistance. The regime's legitimacy is crumbling, with even former supporters turning away. The people see a corrupt elite living in comfort, while they suffer and die. The protests are now about justice, accountability, and the right to a future. The government's reliance on force may clear the streets, but it cannot erase the anger. Iran is at a boiling point, with the risk of wider violence growing by the day. The regime faces a population that refuses to be silenced. Iran's crisis is worsened by crushing international sanctions and nuclear tensions. UN sanctions have strangled the economy, cutting off oil revenue and access to global markets. Hyperinflation and scarcity are direct results, with sanctions fueling public anger. The nuclear standoff remains unresolved after war with Israel and U.S. airstrikes on Iranian facilities. Iran's regional alliances have collapsed. Hamas, Hezbollah, Assad, and the Houthis are all weakened or gone. Tehran is isolated, stripped of leverage, and unable to blame all woes on foreign enemies. Sanctions have empowered regime hardliners, who argue that only defiance can ensure survival. External pressure and internal crisis now feed each other, trapping Iran in a vicious cycle. International pressure shapes every decision in Tehran. Sanctions and isolation push some leaders toward compromise, nuclear talks, or regional de-escalation to ease economic pain. But hardliners see any concession as weakness, insisting on defiance and repression. This internal struggle paralyzes the regime, making coherent policy nearly impossible. Foreign threats, like U.S. warnings, give the regime propaganda tools to paint protests as foreign plots. The leadership is trapped, balancing fear of collapse with fear of intervention. Short-term security measures win out over real reform. Iran's fate now hinges on whether it chooses engagement or deeper isolation. Iran stands at a historic crossroads: reform or repression. One path, genuine concessions, anti-corruption efforts, and renewed diplomacy to ease pressure and rebuild trust. The other, intensified crackdowns, mass arrests, and permanent isolation, risking civil conflict and pariah status. The choice is both political and moral, shaping Iran's future for generations. The world watches as Iranians refuse to accept poverty and repression. The regime must decide dialogue or more bullets, compromise or collapse. The courage of the people is clear. The government's next move will define the nation's fate. What do you think lies ahead for Iran? The conversation